Has WWE Unreal signaled the end of Kayfabe? Let's break it down. What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Pembo Show. Today, we're going to talk about WWE Unreal and what it's doing to the business, if it's good, if it's bad. But to start with, I'll read a quote from Paul Heyman. He says, "He's not a fan of the show. He grew up in an era where he defended the secrecy of this business, and that's how we earned our living." Very interesting. Because we all know wrestling is staged, don't we? And it's predetermined. Most of us fans, obviously the kids might not. And I think that's what's great. The kids keep the magic alive, don't they, with kayfabe, I suppose. But yeah, most of us adult fans, we know how the business works. You know, we know that they're just real people and they may not hate the people that they're wrestling with. But I think I do like behind the scenes stuff, personally I do, and to see how it all works and things like that. But not with wrestling. I think, you know, it's got this aura about it, especially when I was younger growing up, it had this aura about it, you know, this magic about it, and you never really knew, did you? And I suppose when you're younger as a kid, you don't really think, you just enjoy it for what it is. But yeah, I'm not sure WWE Unreal is doing it much favours at the moment, the business, I really do. But what I'd like to ask you all, what your first memory of pro wrestling was, and why it captivated you. We all started as kids, most of us, didn't we, to getting fans of the business. For me, it was during the, I think it was the late 90s, as a spotty teenager, in the Attitude Era, the Stone Cold era. And yeah, when I first saw that, it was wow. You know, I was hooked. I was captivated by these larger-than-life personalities, you know, and these big entrances, the entrance music, and the stories, the characters. And, you know, back then as a kid, I had no idea it was staged. I didn't know that. You know, I just really enjoyed it for what it was. And when somebody would beat one of my favourites, say Stone Cold, you know, you'd hate that heel. You'd hate that wrestler who beat your favourite, wouldn't you? Genuinely, you would, you get really passionate about it. But now, obviously, as most of us adult fans now, we seem to get more passionate about the booking and how our wrestlers are booked more than, you know, we don't direct our heat to heels anymore, do we? We direct it straight to Triple H, I suppose. And that's one of the issues, I think, with WWE Unreal. You know, you look at when Cena tapped out to Gunther, you know, the heat that Triple H got when he came out, you know, all that heat was, I think he got more heat than Gunther, didn't he, to be honest. But, you know, back in the day when I first started watching wrestling, if that would have happened, you know, you take the Cena tap out back to the 90s, you know, Gunther would have got nuclear heat, you know, because back then, you know, something like my parents, your uncles and whatever would be like, oh, it's fake. But even they didn't know the inner workings of the business. And especially me as a child, I had no idea. You know, if I was a kid back then and that happened, I'd be absolutely furious. I'd hate Gunther with a passion. You know, I really would. But now it's hard to buy it, isn't it? Especially with Gunther at the moment, it's hard to buy him because you know that obviously he's just being booked as a heel. It's hard to believe that, you know, is this ice cold, ruthless machine in real life. And I think that's the thing with WWE Unreal. You know, that's one of the problems it's done. The heat's being directed at the bookers and creative more than the actual wrestlers themselves. Yes, that's one interesting point there for sure, especially with that tap out situation there, the heat that Triple H got. You know, and I think it is dying now, kayfabe. It's completely gone, hasn't it, really, now? It might exist in the magic of the kids still. You know, it might exist there. They still, you know, believe a bad guy's bad and a good guy's good, you know. And back to John Cena with the heel turn. I mean, you know, he's a genuine good guy in real life, isn't he? From the Cena character who portrays all the Make-A-Wishes and everything. So when he turned heel, and just turned on the fans after 20 years, it didn't really land, did it? It was hard to believe, you know, because obviously we're seeing more and more now of wrestlers behind the scenes, their actual lives and on social media and these reality shows and stuff. So, you know, one of the biggest examples I could give you all of kayfabe and the mystique and the magic and the aura of a professional wrestling character, you know, would be the Undertaker. I mean, the lengths and the effort that man went through to protect that character was phenomenal, really. And you don't see that much these days now. I mean, some of the old boys would still advocate for it. You know, like Paul Heyman's not a fan of the show, and I don't think Undertaker is either. But yeah, with the Undertaker, it'd stay in character in public, wouldn't he? For most of his career, Mark Calloway, yeah, you wouldn't even know anything about him. He rarely broke character in public. You know, he tried to avoid interviews as himself. You know, and he maintained this stoic, unfriendly demeanour, didn't he? You know, to try and minimise interactions. And I think Paul Bearer often served as his mouthpiece, didn't he, during public appearances? And then Taker just grunting. And I think he would wear black. You know, he'd wear black a lot in public and, you know, try and protect the aura of that character. You know, and make people think this dude is not friendly, you know. Try and say as little as possible. So yeah, the Undertaker, he spent years and years protecting it, and I think that's what made it special. You know, it made that character really special with the Undertaker. It really did. And I think, you know, to see a character like that again now it's never going to happen, is it? Now those days are gone. So yeah, that's my biggest gripe with WWE Unreal. You know, I mean, a lot of the older fans again say they know about all the booking and all that sort of stuff, but you know, do we really need to know? Like, we know it's staged, but do we need reminding that it's staged? You know, it'd be like watching a film, wouldn't it? And having, you know, the producer or director coming on every 10 minutes and saying, you do know this is not real. You know, do we need to know that? Do we need to know who's best friends? You know, because then if they're putting a rivalry together, it's harder to believe, isn't it? You know, and that's the thing with WWE Unreal as well. That's staged in itself, isn't it? So, in my opinion, that's the irony of the show, that it's you know, a raw, supposed to be a raw behind the scenes look at how it all works, the inner workings of it, and behind the scenes. But still, I still think it's staged. They're not really showing like backstage drama, are they? You know, real life fallouts, or you know, who doesn't like who will just walk past each other in the hallways and just blank each other completely. You know, it's not really showing that. It's showing people like other wrestlers clapping and smiling. I think there was a scene in one where Charlotte Flair came backstage and all the peers were clapping and smiling and everything like that. So, yeah, I think if they're going to do it, they should have really showed actual drama, you know, actual beef, you know, actual fallouts, who doesn't like each other. And I think that would have then elevated any feuds on screen, wouldn't it? If you know deep down that they don't like each other for real, putting them on a match on telly would make it more interesting for the fans. Because, you know, some fans don't want to see how a match is put together, do they? How an entrance is put together. They probably don't want to see that, because that's part of the larger than life aura of this business. You know, so yeah, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts, guys. Will you be watching WWE Unreal Season 2? Have you watched Season 1? What are your thoughts? I mean, you know, as a wrestling fan, it's not a bad watch, is it? But I just think the curtain's been pulled back, and there's no going back now, is there? You know, like I said, I think the magic's still there with the kids, isn't it? They don't know that the wrestlers obviously talk to each other during the match. They've got a time limit. The referee coordinates when they've got to go through their finish and different things like that. And that the wrestlers spend weeks together before a match, don't they? Putting the match together, and they're probably laughing and joking together backstage. The kids don't know that. Obviously, we all know that. But do we need to be constantly reminded of it? I don't think so. I don't think it does the business any favours, and I do agree with Paul Heyman there. So yeah, the best example I could give of Kayfabe is Undertaker. You know, absolutely fantastic. The aura of that character, absolutely brilliant. It's probably better for the wrestlers now, isn't it, that they haven't got to stay in character at all times out in public. You know, because I imagine that's a big commitment, but still, that's part of the business, and I think it should have been protected. The aura of it, the mystique, the secrecy of the business. In my opinion, it should have been protected. If you're still listening, guys, at this stage, I really appreciate you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on WWE Unreal and what you think it's doing for the business. Let me know in the comments. If you're feeling very generous today, if you'd like to hit that subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. It won't cost you a thing. It's totally free to hit that subscribe button, and it'd make a fellow wrestling fan like me very happy. Wish you all the best, guys. Take care, and I'll see you on another video.